is a conversation with the Mona, but also sort of the consciousness of fire, of heat. Those are kind of two different things, but the Mona was having me look at this candle, and she was trying to get me to understand the technology that heat is, the technology that it is, and in the process of transmutation, in a being. And when she was talking about this, my question to her was sort of like, are you talking about challenge and pain? Because when I was considering it, I'm thinking about how the primary modality in which I know how to evolve is to use struggle and pain. And she kept saying, like, yeah, that's one way of doing it. Pain and challenge creates heat, it creates intensity, and it creates pressure, and this heat allows for a being to expand in the same way that you would have expansion under the conditions of a certain amount of heat from liquid to gas or vapor. And but she kept saying, it was, the way I initially heard it was, but there's another kind. And I was like, what do you mean there's another kind of heat? And it was like, yes, but no, not really. And she kept reiterating this. She's like, there's a quality about heat. There's a quality that is bound to heat or bound to fire that induces this phenomena of expansion and moving upward. And she says, look at fire, look at heat. It's always in this process of moving upward. And I was like, okay, but what do you mean? What is this other type of heat? And it was like, well, it's not really like that. And so a few days later, then I was reading what is it called? Elements of Chemistry by Lavoisier, and he was talking about this thing that he calls caloric and caloric, depending on how you want to say it. And it's sort of, he says it's like a liquid. It's a liquid that cannot exist on its own. You never see it in nature by itself. You only see the effects of it in bodies that are exposed to heat. And it's sort of the potential for expansion, the potential for combustion. And I think sometimes he also calls it the matter of heat. Maybe that's something different. Anyways, but he did this experiment, which was that he placed a jar of water in a vacuum. And if you remove all of the air from that glass container, the water will undergo an identical phenomenon of when you're boiling a pot of water. That water will turn to vapor. And he called it boiling. And I was like, but there's no heat. It's not, the temperature hasn't risen, or it hasn't risen very much. And later when I was in meditation, the Mona was saying, this is what I'm talking about. There are other methods of expansion. It doesn't always have to be under the condition of pain and challenge, in the same way that there can be expansion and there can be the transmutation that happens from water into vapor without heat by removing the atmospheric pressure. You're also able to expand and transcend without pain. And she was saying, this is sort of what it means to enter into a different dimension, into a new dimension, is you look up and you notice that there's another way to go. And I was like, okay, so what is this other way? And she was like, you can use love and you can use celebration. The emotions of love and celebration, you can use them like a technology, you can use them as a modality to invoke a similar change towards expansion and towards evolution. And And she was saying it's almost like love is an original kind of heat. It contains this thing that's like caloric, this invisible fluid that permeates bodies and causes them to expand. And she was saying this is the original method of expansion, the primordial state of existence, the void, exploded from a place of love and curiosity because she wanted to be able to observe herself. And she kept saying, if you want to evolve, if you want to transform, if you want to expand, be in love, do things that you love, partake in activities that cause you to feel love, wear things that you love. And she was saying, because I had kept asking her, I was like, how do I do this thing of with awareness, really creating my own life? And she kept talking about using emotion. She was like, everybody creates their life from emotion. Everybody does. It's just that most of us are walking around completely unaware of what our emotions are and being in a state of being completely passive to our circumstances, such that we're always in a state of reactivity. Our emotions are constantly being provoked without intention. And she was saying, she said something really funny. She said, be in love 51% of the time. And this went back to another conversation that I had had with her a few weeks before, where she was talking to me about what prophecy was. And she said, the reason why certain prophecies in history have come true was because enough people believed that it was going to happen. And she said 51% majority vote wins. And she was like, so for example, in a city, if there was a prophecy and 51% of that city truly believed that it was going to happen to the point that they were expecting it, they were looking for it, that's why it happened. And so I found this to be really interesting. She was like, if you can be in a state of love, she kept saying you only need 51%. Majority vote wins. If you can find a way to be in a state of love and celebration 51% of the time, that will be enough to shift your body, to shift your life into a different direction if you're coming from a state of despair and anger and lack and all these different things. 51%, majority vote wins. So I just found that to be really, really interesting, that there are these two different ways that you can transcend. You can absolutely use pain, because whatever it is that causes an individual to expand and grow through challenge and pain, it's like that invisible fluid that Lavoisier was talking about. It is also present in that. It's present in the pain and it's present in the suffering, but there also is another option, and that's celebration and bliss and love. So she was really encouraging me to see things from a different way, and she actually talked to me about pleasure and celebration for like 6 days in a row. Every night I sat with her, it was always about pleasure and celebration for a whole week. And there was one day in particular that it was like she was really trying to make me get this. She was like, this is a discipline, because she had been talking to me about discipline a couple of weeks prior, and I was like, oh, discipline, okay, so I'm gonna wake up really early, I'm gonna work out, I'm gonna do all these things. She was like, yeah, that's cool, that's great, but let's talk about discipline of emotion. Let's talk about discipline around state of being. And she was saying, she showed me those, I was going to Google what these are called, I forget what they're called. You know those stupid, those cards that psychologists will show you, and it's a black and white image, and depending on if you're looking at the black part or the white part as the foreground, as the main image, you'll see two different images. She was showing me these, and these aren't the only those cards aren't the only types of images that are like this. I've seen them floating around on Instagram where it's a shadow also, and if you look at the shadow, it's like a wolf, and if you look at the light, it's a butterfly or something like this. And she was like, this is exactly how life works. What you are what you're choosing to look at, if you're choosing to look at the shadow, or if you're choosing to look at the light, you'll see completely different images, and you'll experience that as two completely different types of experiences. Whatever emotion is evoked by the wolf, you'll have a different emotion and different experience evoked by looking at the butterfly, and it's your emotional state and how you perceive it that is creating how the experience continues to unfold for you. And she was like, you have to use discipline yourself to choose to see the light in everything, choose to see the good in everything, or choose to see it how you actually want it to be. It wasn't really this idea of trying to ignore the bad things. It wasn't like that. It was like, if you want your experience to be different, look at it in the light that you want it to transform into. And so I was talking to my friend about this. There are some things that I've done in life, some changes that I've experienced in life, where it was really an effort, an intentional effort. I would notice something about my state of being. I would notice something about how I would react to a certain type of situation, and I would intentionally work on that, practice it. Every time it would happen, I'd be like, no, I'm gonna behave differently, I'm gonna think differently, I'm gonna act differently, I'm gonna feel differently about it. And then there are some things every now and then where it's almost like these beings that I've been talking to will change something in my mind, change something in my body, at least for a certain period of time, to be able to give me the experience of what it feels like. And in this instance, she was telling me to see the good, to see the light in things. And when I woke up the next morning, all I could think of was how beautiful and good everything was. When I was thinking about my life, when I was thinking about my past, when I was thinking about my friends, instead of thinking of, and I would frequently, I would think about like, oh, you know, why am I like this, or why do my friends have this quality? It's not really a quality that I love. I wish they were a little bit more like this. And the next morning, all I could experience, every single thing that I thought of, all I could see was how great it was and how good it was. And every single person in my life that I could think of, all I could see and think was how amazing they were. And I went outside that morning to walk the dog, and it was cold, and there was dew on the grass. It was like frozen dew, and the light was hitting it in such a way. And I looked, and it was like all of this blue and green and yellow glitter. The way the light was hitting the frozen dew, it just made the dew in the grass completely sparkle in all these different colors. And I sat there just like marveling at this, and it was like she was saying, this has been there the whole time. It's not that you've shifted into a different fucking reality and suddenly the grass has sparkles on it. It's been here the whole time. You're just not looking for it. And whatever it is that you are looking for in life, you will fucking find it. If you're looking for issues, if you're looking for problems, if you're looking for pain, you will always find it. And if you're looking for beauty, you'll find it too. So that was a really impactful lesson for me. And it's really insisted from me to use discipline. I think so often it's like, fuck, we just kind of insist on feeling how it is that whatever emotion naturally arises in us based around a certain phenomenon or circumstance. And she was like, if you're going to use discipline for anything, use it to guide yourself into a state of love 51% of the time. That's all you need. Yeah. So this was a good one for me. This one really changed the way I walk around in the world.